The Costa Concordia disaster is one of the most tragic and controversial incidents in maritime history. What happened on January 13, 2012, off the coast of Italy was no less than a mystery or a horror film. Imagine a magnificent floating city where thousands of people were enjoying music, fine dining, and the waves of the sea. No one had even the slightest idea that in the next few minutes this celebration was going to turn into a scream. A scream that the world would remember for centuries. This story is not just about the sinking of a ship, but it is a story of arrogance, of negligence that disgraced humanity, and of a mystery that still leaves many questions in people's minds. What exactly happened that night that the cruise ship considered one of the safest in the world turned into a coffin of death? Why did an experienced captain put his ship and more than 4,000 people on board in danger? Today, in this video, we will uncover every layer of that dark night of the Costa Concordia and learn the truth that was perhaps buried somewhere in the depths of the sea. This story begins on the evening of January 13, 2012. It was Friday, and the date was also the 13th, which is considered extremely unlucky in Western culture. From the port of Civitavecchia in Italy, this massive cruise ship named Costa Concordia set out. It was around 9 o'clock at night. Passengers were enjoying their dinner. Music was playing in the halls, and everything seemed completely normal. But meanwhile, something was happening on the ship's bridge, the control room, that was about to change the fate of the entire ship. The ship's captain, Francesco Schettino, who had years of experience, made a very dangerous decision. He decided that he would move the ship away from its planned route and take it extremely close to a small island called Isola del Ghiaccio. In maritime language, this is called a sail-past salute. It is a way of paying respect where the ship is brought so close to the shore that the people there can see the ship's lights and hear its horn. But the rules said that a ship of this size should stay at least 5 miles away from the shore. Schettino ignored those rules. He went so close to the coast, where rocks hidden under the water could prove to be a death trap for any massive ship. At exactly 9:45 at night, a powerful jolt was felt. People sitting inside the ship felt as if there had been an earthquake, or the ship had collided with something huge. Dishes began to fall, the sound of glass breaking was heard, and the lights of the entire ship went out in an instant. The Costa Concordia had struck a rock that locals called La Scole. This collision tore a massive 50-meter-long hole in the lower part of the ship. The icy sea water began to rush rapidly into the engine room and generator room. Within minutes, the ship's power system failed. On that massive ship plunged into darkness. Only the sounds of fear and panic were echoing. But the real drama was just about to begin. When the ship's crew informed Captain Schettino that the engine room was flooded and the ship could no longer move forward, what did Schettino do? Instead of telling the passengers the truth, he lied to them. But it was said that this was just a technical fault. There had been a small blackout, and no need to panic. While people searched for life jackets, the captain and his officers told them to go back to their rooms. This was a negligence that later cost many lives. If you find this information frightening, then like this video and do not forget to subscribe to our channel, because the truth that is about to come out about this incident will shock you. Even nearly 1 hour after the collision, the captain had not officially given the order to abandon ship. Water was filling in so rapidly that the large ship began to tilt to one side. By the time Schettino sounded the distress alarm, it was already too late. The ship had tilted nearly 20, making it almost impossible to lower the lifeboats. People were screaming, children were crying, and chaos had spread everywhere. In the darkness and on the slanting floors, it was becoming difficult for people to keep their balance. Many people, out of fear, jumped into the cold water. But in this entire disaster, the most shameful event that occurred shook the whole world. Captain Francesco Schettino, whose responsibility was to safely rescue his passengers, himself sat in a lifeboat and fled toward the shore, while thousands of his passengers were still trapped on the sinking ship. When Coast Guard officer Gregorio De Falco found out that the captain had fled, he contacted Schettino on the radio. The conversation that took place between them is still considered one of the most bitter moments in history. Officer De Falco was shouting, "Schettino, you may be able to save yourself, but you must go back on board the ship. People are dying there. Tell me how many children and women are there, and you must lead the rescue." But Schettino kept making excuses, saying that it was very dark there and that he had fallen. The officer's anger and Schettino's cowardice became the biggest truth of that night. The waves of the sea were slowly swallowing those innocent lives who had come only to enjoy a pleasant vacation. As the night grew darker, the atmosphere of chaos increased on the quiet shores of Giglio Island. Coast Guard officer De Falco's shouting on the radio, "Go back to the ship," was not just an order, but the cry of desperation of the thousands of trapped passengers. But Captain Schettino, who was looking for a taxi on the shore, had already ignored that call. On the ship, the scene was nothing less than hell. As the Costa Concordia kept tilting to one side, the laws of physics seemed to stop working. The corridors that had once been straight had now turned into deep chasms. The floor that had been built for walking had become a slippery slope on which it was impossible to maintain balance. For the crowd trapped inside the ship, gravity became the biggest enemy. When the ship tilted, more than 20 lifeboats on the right side came very close to the water. This made them difficult to launch, while lifeboats on the left side were left hanging in the air. People were tightly holding iron railings, because even the slightest mistake meant falling into that dark and icy depth. The most horrifying deaths were of those who remained trapped in the elevators. When the power went out and the ship began to tilt, the elevator turned into a noose of death. As the water kept rising, the people trapped in those elevators had no way to escape. Their final screams remained trapped within those iron walls. In the middle of this tragedy, where the captain had turned away from his responsibility, there were also some who proved to be no less than angels. 30-year-old drummer Gasif Girolamo is remembered, who gave his lifeboat seat to a child. Girolamo did not know how to swim, and that night he sacrificed his life to save others. Many such stories were floating with the wreckage that night. Some crew members were risking their lives, searching for people in dark cabins. The ship's structure was continuously creaking under extreme stress. The sounds of metal clashing were as if a gigantic monster was taking its last breaths. Midnight had passed, and the ship had now almost completely leaned onto its right side. When the bright lights of rescue helicopters fell upon the ship, the scene became shaking. Thousands of people were clinging to the part of the ship that was still above water. For those passengers, that night had become an endless, long horror story. The Italian Coast Guard and local fishermen had arrived there with their small boats. But the condition of the gigantic ship was so fragile that, at any moment, it could have completely rolled over and sunk those small boats as well. Here, another mysterious detail came to light. Investigators later discovered that when the ship struck the rock, there was a mystery woman on the bridge with the captain. She was not a passenger, but a dancer from Moldova who had been kept there without any official record. Was the captain trying to impress her that night? Was that the reason his attention was distracted? These questions are still among the most controversial theories of this accident. Just thinking about how a small human mistake and personal ego turned such a massive ship into a graveyard gives goosebumps. Before going deeper into this incident, if you are still watching this video, write Concordia in the comments so we know you are closely following this mystery. And yes, do not forget to share this video so that this lesson of safety and responsibility reaches others as well. With the first rays of the morning sun, the world saw a scene that could shake anyone to the core. Costa Concordia, which was a symbol of luxury, was now lying near the rocks of Giglio Island like a dead whale. The blue sea was now filled with white debris, life jackets, and people's belongings. When rescue teams dived inside the wreck, what they saw was like a terrifying nightmare. The dining hall where feasts were taking place just a few hours earlier now had chairs and tables floating underwater. In the dark cabins, divers found the bodies of people who must have tried until their last breath to get out. 32 people lost their lives, including a little girl named Diana and her father. Their story made all of Italy cry. This accident not only destroyed those families, but also exposed the safety claims of the cruise industry. But the story does not end here. The ship had sunk, but now the real challenge was to remove that massive corpse from the sea. Was it possible to move that 14,000-ton wreck? Could the Italian government and engineers together accomplish the impossible task? The engineers were facing a challenge never seen before. The ship was resting on a sloping rock. If it slipped from there, it would fall into a 300-foot deep abyss from where recovery would be impossible. At the same time, millions of gallons of fuel were still inside the ship. If that fuel leaked into the sea, the entire ecosystem of that beautiful island would be destroyed. This was not just a battle to remove a ship, but also a great struggle to save nature. The best minds from around the world came together to raise this massive structure again. For the engineers, this was a mission that would be recorded in history books. Preventing Costa Concordia from sliding off the slope was the first priority. Therefore, first of all, the ship was tied to the rocks with massive steel cables. This operation was named parbuckling. At the same time, sponsons' giant metal boxes were welded onto the upper part of the ship. The purpose of these boxes was to balance the ship and refloat it on the water. In September 2013, the eyes of the entire world were on Giglio Island. After 19 hours of hard work and tremendous engineering, that 114,000-ton wreck was slowly straightened. When the ship stood upright, its left side was completely crushed and covered in rust. It was telling the story of that terrible collision. But this was only half the battle. The real challenge was to remove it from there and take it to the port of Genoa so that it could be dismantled. In July 2014, the day finally came when Costa Concordia began its final journey. It was pulled by massive tugboats. The sight was like a frightening dream. A gigantic, half-sunken and decaying white structure was slowly crawling over the ocean waves. It took years to dismantle it, and the total cost of the entire salvage operation exceeded $1.2 billion, far more than the cost of building the ship itself. While the wreck was being removed, another battle was taking place in an Italian court. This battle was for justice for the 32 innocent people who lost their lives because of one mistake by the captain. The trial against Captain Francesco Schettino began. The world's media gave him the name Captain Coward. In court, the arguments Schettino presented were even more shocking. He claimed that he did not flee the ship, but that, due to the ship's tilt, he accidentally fell into a lifeboat. This absurd defense further fueled public anger. Prosecutors proved that Schettino had not only violated safety rules, but had also abandoned his crew and passengers in their moment of crisis. In 2015, the court delivered its historic verdict. Francesco Schettino was found guilty of manslaughter, causing the shipwreck, and the most disgraceful crime, abandoning the ship before the passengers. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Although he appealed several times to higher courts, his sentence remained unchanged. Today, he is serving his sentence in an Italian prison. But can 16 years in jail reduce the pain of those 32 families? For those families, Costa Concordia remains a deep wound. After this accident, cruise ship safety regulations around the world were changed. Now, muster drills for passengers are mandatory before the ship departs. The mystery of the Costa Concordia teaches us a major lesson. No matter how modern technology becomes, human arrogance and avoiding responsibility can bring the greatest destruction. That massive ship, once a symbol of wealth and luxury, ultimately turned into scrap iron. The sea once again proved that taking it lightly can be humanity's biggest mistake. If this story of the Costa Concordia has shaken you, don't forget to share this video with your friends. What is your opinion? Was the 16-year sentence for Captain Schettino enough, or was the entire system responsible? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comment section. To learn about more deep mysteries and historical events like this, subscribe. Don't forget to press the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. The story of the Costa Concordia is recorded in history. Its echo still serves as a warning to sailors today. Stay safe and keep watching our special series. Thank you.